Welcome. I want to welcome you to yet another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. It's your boy Jalen. And if you would do me a favor, please like and subscribe wherever you're consuming this episode, consuming the podcast. If you're not consuming it to YouTube, please come to the YouTube and please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. But last night we saw, first of all, I want to say congratulations and shouts out to college football. I was one of the people, and I'm still a little hesitant in saying that they should have had a season, but they did, and they were able to get through the season. So shout out to college basketball. Shout out to all the players that pretty much put their lives on the line, with COVID and everything going on. Shout out to all the coaches, all the recruits or recruiting offices, whatever, that had to adjust to everything that was going on this year, seeing as though they decided to have a college football season. I mean, I remember when it first started, I was one of the people that didn't even think they were going to have one. You had people like the Big Ten say they're not having a season, and the Pac-12 said they're not having a season. And, once they saw that the SEC got rolling and then they changed their tune, I was just like, I don't know if this is the right move. But, hey, again, shouts out to college football, first and foremost, for having a successful season. Now I want to shout out Alabama for winning the national championship. Now, it's funny, man. Watching last night, it was apparent very quickly that Ohio State and Alabama were in a different class. Matt Jones was incredible. Devontae Smith, before he went out with a hand injury, he had 12 receptions for like 100 or 230 yards, and that was before halftime. Najee Harris had a couple touchdowns, or I think 3 touchdowns. Man, it was a complete dominant. I'll say this: I thought that Ohio State had a chance because Alabama's defense has been shaky this entire year. They weren't really good against Georgia. They've had success due to how great their offense is. And I thought, especially what I saw out of Justin Fields in Ohio State, I thought that they would be able to capitalize on that defense and make it a competitive game. Now, did I think they were going to win? No, but I didn't think they were going to get manhandled and destroyed as much as they did. But that doesn't take away from Ohio State deserved to be there. Don't get me wrong. You beat Clemson. You beat whoever's on your schedule. I understand that you only played 7 games, but you deserve to be there. But again, I want to shout out Alabama for this is arguably the greatest run we've ever seen in a sports team. And it's definitely due to the fact of how great Nick Saban. Oh shoot, how great Nick Saban has been. It's not. We look at the dynasty that is the Spurs dynasty with Pop, Tim Duncan, you have Manu Ginobili. We think about that. That's a great dynasty. We think about the dynasty that is the old Yankees, the dynasty that is the Celtics back in the day. I would say that this dynasty that Alabama has built is definitely up there when we talk about how great dynasties are, due to the fact that players are it's so tough for a program to remain dominant, seeing as though there's a lot of factors that go into how a program is run, how a program succeeds, and the future of a program. You have scouting, you have recruiting, you have the head coach, you have the equipment managers, you have the strength and conditioning coaches. There's so much, the ADs. There's so much that goes into a college football program success that it's hard to see a dynasty held. And I understand that, they haven't won. They don't win every time they make it to the national championship. But the fact that Nick Saban has won 7 national championships, it's unfathomable, seeing as how much college football and college sports in general changes year after year. So, even though a lot of people don't like dynasties and a lot of people don't like when one team has success a lot, it's hard to, you can't deny the greatness that is Alabama. Like, I know a lot of people were upset with how great and dominant Golden State was with Curry and Durant. I know a lot of people, like I said, were upset with the Spurs. A lot of people were upset with the Miami Heat when they had LeBron and D Wade. It's just people don't really like greatness, especially when their team isn't the one. Now, no, I'm not an Alabama fan, but yeah, man, shouts out to Alabama for winning the national championship, and shouts out to Devonta Smith. Shouts out to Najee Harris. Shouts out to Mac Jones. Shouts out to Jalen Waddle, man. He was. He broke his ankle in the beginning of the season, and it looked pretty bleak. But the fact that a lot of players would say, okay, you know what? I already know that I'm good enough to be in the league. I already know that the league wants me. And I already broke my ankle. I can speed back just so I can start training. Like, literally, there's a difference between training and rehabbing. Like, you look at Cam Newton. Cam Newton for a minute now has been rehabbing, and I think that is kind of what has played into one reason why the season hasn't been as successful for him and the Patriots that a lot of people thought it would be, because he hasn't been training. Because for the majority of his off seasons for the last 2-3 years has been rehabbing. So I say that to say Jalen Waddle has been rehabbing, and the fact that he rushed his rehab to come back to a national championship, especially when he has aspirations and he's talented enough to be a first round pick in this year's draft, it speaks volumes to him. A lot of people wouldn't do that. I don't know if I do that, especially if, you saw a lot of stars, you saw AJ Brown, you saw Patrick Mahomes, like, yo, and he was limping all over the field. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell he was hurt. You can tell he was injured and he was playing through pain. But, shouts out for him to even coming back. And he wasn't a huge factor, but he kind of was a big factor, because you have a player coming back that good and that big, you have to game plan around him, which I think is a big reason why, along with his talent, Devonta Smith had such a huge first half. Now, again, he went out with injury. I know it was his hand. I hope that, he's able to come back better than ever, especially in the NFL. But shouts out to Alabama for winning the national championship. It was well deserved. I heard a lot of people talk about, is this Alabama team good as last year's LSU team? All I'll say about that is, let's not be a prisoner of the moment. LSU, first of all, this LSU team beat this Alabama team. Now, I understand Matt Jones is better, but they beat this team that had Devonta Smith, that had Jalen Waddle, and also had Judy and Ruggs. That's all I'm going to say about that. And last year's Alabama's defense was better than this year's. So let's not be a prisoner in the moment. LSU is one of the greatest football teams, or at least statistically, we have ever seen in college football. But again, it doesn't take away from anything that Alabama's done. Shouts out to Alabama for winning the national championship. It was most definitely well deserved. And actually, shouts out for Ohio State, man. I don't think that this loss hurt Justin Fields' draft prospect at all. Like, I don't think it hurt I don't think he's going to drop in the draft because of this. I think what he did against Clemson was a lot more defining than what he did last night. I understand, like I said, that's a tough game that, you're going against the great Alabama. Not to mention, they said a hip pointer, but again, you have an injury that you can tell was kind of affecting his movement and his range of motion. So, again, shouts out to both teams, but congratulations to Alabama for winning the national championship. It was a dominant team, or at least dominant offensively, and hey, man, they were exactly who we thought they were. So, shouts out to Alabama. Let's move over to what we saw this weekend or last weekend in the NFL. Let's first, the biggest game and the most surprising game, in my opinion, was the Steelers against the Browns. The Steelers, now, let me first say this. I was one person, especially in the season. Now, I gave the Pittsburgh Steelers their credit. When they were 11-0, I said they were the best team in the league at this point. But I also was one person that said there's a lot of issues with Pittsburgh. Now, yes, you're 11-0, but you have to look at 11. Not all undefeateds are made equal. For instance, let's go back to college football for a second. Alabama's being undefeated, Alabama undefeated and Ohio State undefeated was different. The Big Ten is different than the SEC. Alabama's undefeated was different than Clemson's undefeated. ACC is different than the SEC. You look at the strength of schedule. You look at who you play. You look at the amount of home games. You look at the amount of away games. You look at the stats. No, all undefeateds are not the same. So bring it back to Pittsburgh. Yes, they were 11-0, but I was like, there's a lot of things that aren't attractive about Pittsburgh. For one, they are god awful when it comes to running the ball. James Conner, Snell, they are I think they're like a bottom 3 in running the ball. A team that is 11-0 is one of the worst running teams in the league. Number 2, a huge red flag is that yes, you have Juju Smith-Schuster. Yes, you have Chase Claypool. Yes, you have William or Washington. But Pittsburgh does not throw the ball downfield, deep. Like, it's a lot of dink and dunks, or it's a lot of, throw it to the flats, and the wide receivers, how shifty and how crafty and how fast they are, they make a play. That's what it's a lot of. And that bodes well in the regular season when you play, bad teams, when you play the Bengals, even though they lost to them, but when you play bad teams, but it doesn't bode well for you in the playoffs. You need look at all the offenses that's won previous Super Bowls. Even the Patriots that didn't have a lot of wide receivers, they still had Tom Brady, who was throwing the ball deep. They had Wes Welker. They had Julian Edelman. Even the one that they lost, they had Randy Moss. It's not going to bode well for you if you continuously just throw the ball in the flats and expect your wide receivers to make a play. So seeing all these red flags, not to mention another red flag is a lot of this. The team had a lot of off the field that kind of carried on the field situations. And I'm speaking about just being loud in the media. You see what Juju Smith was doing, or Juju Smith-Schuster was doing. You see some of the running backs, they dealt with injury. Not to mention the injuries. There was a lot of stuff that the Pittsburgh Steelers, there was a lot of red flags, let's say that the Pittsburgh Steelers had. So let's fast forward to Sunday. I was one of the people, and you can look last week, I was one of the people that said the Browns, I thought not having Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, who's also the play caller, was going to be huge for the Browns. They not only were they missing the play caller, they were missing some key pieces on the defensive side and key pieces on the offensive side. They didn't practice for the whole week due to COVID, and they had to close the facilities. I just thought that, not to mention Big Ben was rested and TJ Watt was rested. Some of their best players were rested. I thought that this game, it wasn't going to be a cakewalk because it's still a divisional matchup between the Browns and the Steelers. But I thought that Big Ben and the Steelers were going to be able to beat a head coachless Browns team. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. from the first play of the game, veteran Maurice Pouncey hikes the ball to Big Ben. Now, granted, Big Ben is like 6'4", 6'5". He sails the joint over his head. Big Ben and James Conner run for the ball. Goes in the end zone. None of them dive to get it until the Browns dive to get it. They get a touchdown. It's very rare that in the NFL, the first play, it's not like basketball. The first play is very rare that the first play in an NFL game decides I guess the fate of the game. You know what I mean? But it was just downhill from there. When we talk about Pittsburgh. So the Browns won 48-37, but the game was not close at all. Like, I understand that Big Ben had the most completions in NFL history. I think he had like 47. He also threw for 500 yards. I think that's second to Tom Brady when we talk about the playoffs. But the game was not, I know they only lost by 11, but the game was not close. There was not a point in that game where you thought, you know what? Pittsburgh might come back. Not one. Like, it was just complete dominance. And again, it shocked me because I did not expect it, seeing as though the cards were stacked against Cleveland. Again, you didn't have a head coach. And who is your play caller? It would be different if your head coach wasn't your play caller, but your head coach is your play caller. You're having a quarterback who this is his first time in the playoffs. You have a young team. You haven't won in Pittsburgh since 1994, my birth year, by the way. The cards are stacked against Cleveland, and for them to come out there and beat a Pittsburgh team, they beat them at every facet of the game. The quarterback position, the running back position, they won the trenches both offensively and defensively. The special teams. And the thing was, there was nothing, like absolutely nothing, that I think coaching could have done to help the Steelers. Like, I don't think Mike Tomlin, there was nothing he could have said, nothing he could have drew up to help Pittsburgh. That's just how it went, man. Now, what happens moving forward? I'm gonna predict the divisional round a little later, but what happens to Pittsburgh? Again, there's a lot. The biggest question is, does Big Ben should they move off of Big Ben? I'll say this. Next year the cap goes down in the NFL. And Big Ben, I think, is expected to be like a $41 million cap hit to the team if he's on the roster. It kind of goes back to production. I understand, legacy. I understand that Big Ben says he wants to play. He wants to continue to play. But does Big Ben's production warrant that big of a cap hit for a team who has a lot more issues than just quarterback? Now, I understand that is pretty bleak. You have Duck Hodges, you have Mason Rudolph. I understand that the backup is pretty bleak. But again, is the production worth the headache? You know what I mean? Like, let me not say headache, because that implies I'll say this: Big Ben's production since losing to, in fact, Big Ben's production nearly this entire season to me has not been worth bringing him back for that price tag. I understand it's a legacy thing. I understand, you don't want someone that's been so loyal to the organization. You don't want him to go out like that. But again, even in the 11-0, even being 11-0, I said they didn't throw the ball downfield. It looked like it. We talk about Drew Brees not having the arm strength to go down the field, and it looked like it hurts Drew Brees when he throws the ball. Big Ben looks like his arm's about to fall off if he tries to pass 25 yards or deeper. Like, it just doesn't look good. Not to mention the fact that in those losses, he was a huge part. He was a turnover machine. He had 4 touchdowns on Sunday and he also had 4 interceptions. Like, now I understand 2 of the interceptions were tipped balls at the line of scrimmage, and then the defender came and scooped it up, or caught it. But 2 of those interceptions were horrible. Like, you look at it like, what was he looking at? That's how bad they were. Not to mention he's not a mobile quarterback. He's an old 38, and you have you have quarterbacks that's younger that will be hitting free agency, like, and or you can try to trade. I understand that Carson Wentz right now, his price tag's pretty big, but he's younger than Big Ben. I understand Sam Darnold, what was going on with the Jets, then they might draft a quarterback. Who knows what we got Cam Newton. Hell, what's his name? Jameis Winston's going to be a free agent. Like, I'll say it like this. If I was front office, I sit Big Ben down. Like, yo, Ben, what's good with you, folk? What's good with you, bro? Look here, man. Look here. I'm gonna just be real with you, man. You're getting old, bro. We love what you've done with the organization. You got us 3 Super Bowls. We won 2 of them Jones. I appreciate you. We love you to death. But it's just, at this point, we want you to. You can retire and go out like that, or we're going to have to cut you. And I don't want you to be cut. And I think that it's just I think your time here is up. That's the conversation I think they have to have with Big Ben, bro. Because even being 11-0, it just didn't look good. And then the losses start, like, what I'm saying? Here's it. Kansas City Chiefs, right? Kansas City Chiefs do not have a good run game. They don't have a consistent run. Even though you have Le'Veon Bell, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they don't have a consistent running. Like, they don't have a consistent running game. But because Patrick Mahomes is so good and their passing attack is so elite, it doesn't really matter that they don't have a running game. And that's the thing. If you look on paper, the Pittsburgh Steelers have incredible wide receivers. You have, like I said, Claypool. You have Washington. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, who more than likely is not going to be there next year since he's hitting free agency. And he's going to want money, and they're not going to be able to pay him. So, but you have wide receivers. It's like, to have that many, to have on paper, to have that, and you have Eric Ebron now, think about it. It's just, I think that now, I could be wrong, but I think we've seen the last of Big Ben, especially elite Big Ben. Like, this entire season, he hasn't looked good, man. And Sunday was just, and again, I'm not putting it all on him. Of course, like I said, you had a lot of key injuries in the defense, but and the Pittsburgh Steelers have dealt with, I think they had the most drops by wide receivers in the league by like a long shot. But, like, again, I think that a lot of this has to do with the fact that Big Ben cannot throw the ball downfield. And it showed. The Browns were playing everything. Like, they didn't even – they were crowding the line of scrimmage, man. Like, and they were playing for the flats. Like, they were not playing at all. They didn't think at all that Big Ben was going to kill them downfield, because he hasn't done it all. I think he did it one half, and that was in the second half against the Colts. But but again, shout out to the Browns, man. It's now, again, I'll talk about the divisional round later, but the Kansas City Chiefs, that's a different story. But we'll talk about that. Let's move on to the next biggest game that we saw. Lamar Jackson goes into now. Here's the thing about Lamar Jackson. Here's the thing about the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson is arguably the most criticized quarterback in the NFL. Now, I say that because we've never seen anything like Lamar Jackson. I guess a lot of people can kind of compare him to Mike Vick, but even Mike Vick has said there's a lot of things Lamar Jackson does that I couldn't even do. So I think, especially since we've seen Lamar Jackson twice before Sunday in the playoffs, and he lost twice. And of course, we know what happened last year with Tennessee. It's like, I think he's probably one of the only quarterbacks that we only care about. Even though he's won the MVP, by the way, we only care about his success in the playoffs. And he's held, like, a lot of people just throw away or just dismiss what he does in the regular season and says, well, I understand he's won 81 or 82% of his games. However, he is 0-2 in the playoffs. And I think the stage was set, man. And not to mention, I think the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson was the only quarterback in the league that if he was down 10 or more points, they never came back and won. So that's also on his resume. I understand that kind of goes into it. But this game had a lot of implications in it. Like I said, this is the wild card. You have the Ravens against the Tennessee Titans. The same Tennessee Titans that knocked the Ravens out just a year before. And we know for people that don't know what happened, the regular season, the Tennessee Titans played the Ravens, and the Titans pretty much gathered on their logo, stomped on their logo. John Harbaugh was like, "Oh, well, we not about to have this," and even that game, the Titans just manhandled the Ravens, and Derrick Henry, they went in overtime with the Derrick Henry touchdown. There's just a lot of bad blood between the Titans and the Ravens. And I think a lot of pressure was put on Lamar, even though I don't think he deserved the pressure, seeing as though how good he is and how much a lot of people, because he's so great at running the ball, a lot of people want to discredit his passing ability. Now, I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady when it comes to passing. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is he passes the ball enough to win games. But I digress. There was a lot going into this game. And early on, it didn't look good. Lamar Jackson threw a bad interception. They went down 10-0. And then you heard everyone say, oh, Lord, they're down 10-0. It's starting to look like a replay of last year. It's just not, Lamar Jackson is over with. Give it up, bro. We're done. It's the noise started sounding off, especially on socials and stuff like that. But then Lamar Jackson showed that he's Lamar Jackson, and he came back and beat the Tennessee Titans 20-13. Now, I understand that's not a lot of points, but he was down. I think, they were down 10-0 and scored 17 consecutive points. That just shows that it was a complete team win, because I know the Ravens held Derrick Henry, who was a 2,000-yard rusher, leading rusher for 2 years in a row, one of the best rushers we've ever seen. You held him to only 40 rushing yards, which, like I said, this is somebody that has had 2,000 yards this season. You held him to 40 points. Lamar Jackson had a 60 or 70 completion percentage. He threw for 179. He rushed for 150. And he had one of incredible. I think two players really won this game. He rushed. It was before the half, it was 3rd-9 or something. He rushed and threw a ball. Mark Andrews caught it. And the second one is, of course, the touchdown run where the pocket collapsed. He got out and ran. I think it was 40-yard run. Lamar Jackson was, what the team did? The Ravens made the Tennessee Titans a one-dimensional team. I'm not saying that, no. You know what it is? I'll say this. What the Ravens did was made the Tennessee Titans a one-dimensional team, but the dimension that they made them was not what they are. The Tennessee Titans has always been a one-dimensional team. It is run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, and we have arguably the best rusher in the league. Run the ball down their throat. That is the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans defense is not good. They have really good wide receivers. I mean, you have A.J. Brown, you have Walker. But Davis. I'm sorry, but their game plan is give the ball to Derrick Henry. What the Ravens made them do was the Ravens put the ball in Ryan Tannehill's hand and said, while we know that you're a rushing team, we're going to make you a passing team. And while Ryan Tannehill has been able to do that from time to time, that's not what they want to do, especially against the Ravens. When you have Marlon Humphreys, when you have Peters, when you have Jimmy Smith that came back, and Calais Campbell, Patrick Queen, they did a great job at neutralizing the run and making Tannehill beat them. If the Ravens would have lost, and it was because Tannehill threw for 350 yards, he had 3 or 4 touchdowns, they would have been like, hey, it is what it is. That was a game plan, and they did it. Like, that's what they wanted. But Ryan Tannehill threw a really costly interception, and yeah, man, the Ravens move on. And it just what I like the most is like I said, Lamar Jackson played as great as he's played in any game. A lot of people are going to look at this game and say this was Lamar Jackson's most important game, which I can kind of agree, seeing as though this was his first playoff win. Now, I think they have a good chance in the divisional round, but this got the Lamar Jackson can't win in the playoffs monkey off his back. And the Ravens is a scary team to deal with, man. The Ravens is a scary team to deal with. So, congratulations to them. Moving forward, we can talk about the next game. The Buccaneers beat the Washington football team 31-23. And Tom Brady, he threw 31. He threw a touchdown. Let me say this. First of all, let's talk about the Washington football team before we talk about the Baltimore or Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The day of the game, or the morning of the game, a lot of people didn't know. Or the afternoon, actually, a lot of people didn't know who was going to start. I kind of felt a little weird when they said that they were thinking about giving Tyler Heinicke as well as Alex Smith snaps. That doesn't bode well, especially in no playoff game. In playoff game, you want a lot of definiteness. You want to know who is going to be your starting quarterback, who's going to be your starting running back, who's going to start, who's going to be. Like, you need defined roles. The fact that they were saying, we're going to test Heinicke and Alex Smith getting snaps, that was never a good sign. And then, of course, the day of, when you find out that Alex Smith wasn't playing, that's when Tyler Heinicke, he's an XFL football quarterback. Just a couple months ago, he was taking classes at Old Dominion. It just didn't bode well. I knew that the defense had to have the game of their life, and they could. If they played like they played against the Steelers, they have a shot. Get to the quarterback when you have all, Allen and Chase Young and Bostic and Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan. When you have all those players, you can definitely, and especially hearing what Chase Young saying, we want Tom. They could. I knew that the only way Washington was going to win was if their defense went crazy. But what we saw was actually the complete opposite. Their defense did enough. But Tyler Heinicke had the game of his life, man. He had a rushing touchdown, he had a passing touchdown. He made it competitive. He was explosive. He was elusive in the pocket. He made a couple of great runs. He had the game of his life. He surprised me. I don't know if moving forward Tyler Heinicke is the future. I don't know if he's a starting quarterback moving forward. I don't know. But I do know that Saturday night he was incredible. He went blow for blow with Tom Brady, and I think that the Washington team did lose, but he surprised me, and I think he surprised everyone because you don't expect somebody, especially we've never really seen except for a quarter of football. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know if he was that good, but he surprised me, and he surprised the team. You saw a lot of quotes saying he played great, and even though we lost, we don't do more victories, but this was a great loss for him, at least, seeing as though we could have a quarterback moving. I don't know if he will, and of course Washington's gonna have to decide the future of Alex Smith, and he's gonna decide if he wants to play. I know he said he's gonna take a couple of months, but yeah, man, shouts out to Tyler Heineke. And moving over to the Bucks, man, the Bucks they have so many pieces. And I said this before the season and going into the season, the Bucks are going to go as far as Tom Brady takes them. Their defense is stout. Their offense, now that you brought in, even without Antonio Brown, you have Chris Godwin, who was a top running back or top wide receiver last year. Mike Evans, we know who he is. You bring back Gronk. You had O.J. Howard before he got injured, but you have now Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. It's just they have so many weapons that it's hard to cover, especially when Tom Brady's rolling. Now, I think a huge moving forward, I think that again, we talk about Washington, but what was Washington? Washington was a 7-9 team. You know what I mean? So now you're going against an opponent who has beat you, 2 times already this season in the Saints. I don't know, but the Buccaneers, I would not be. I don't think they're good enough to win a championship or a Super Bowl, but I do think that they have the pieces and they have the talent to get to a Super Bowl. And I think if you get to the Super Bowl, you could win, I guess. But I don't know, man. I've seen them at their best. And I've seen them at their worst. And even with, Tom Brady was sacked a couple times. He did miss a couple passes, but again, you're still playing a Washington team that was 7-9, and you only won by 8 points. And honestly, Tyler Heineke could have tied it up, if it wasn't for a drop pass by Logan Thomas. So again, moving forward, I think that we'll have to see what happens next week. But shouts out to the Buccaneers for beating the Washington football team 31-23. Now let's move on to the next game. Oh man, I've sat here this entire season and gave Russell Wilson his praise. I've sat here and said that the offensive line needs work, which it does. The defense needs work, which it does. But Saturday, I have to admit, Russell Wilson was a huge part of why the Rams beat the Seahawks 30-20. This is the third home playoff loss in team history. The second against the Rams. Now, I understand the Rams is an incredible defense. You have Aaron Donald. You have Jalen Ramsey. But Russell Wilson, God, he looked awful, man. And it's not just him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting it all on him because, again, the offensive line deteriorated a lot of those plays. The wide receivers really couldn't create separation, but Russell Wilson looked bad. He looked bad. Russell Wilson was a huge. Russell Wilson was a big part. Russell Wilson, for the last few weeks, has been a big reason why the Seattle Seahawks have looked bad these last few weeks, and he was a big reason why they lost on Saturday. It just. Again, I understand that the Rams have a great defense, but Russell Wilson. A lot of why Russell Wilson looked bad was not because of the Rams defense. He's been looking like this for the past few weeks. It's crazy, man. The biggest storyline going in was Russell Wilson has never received a MVP vote. This is going to be yet another year. And the crazy thing is, he was leading a lot of the beginning of the year, probably the first quarter of the year. I would say he was the leading candidate for MVP. He was looking incredible. Had the Seahawks number 1 in the NFC, and I was just like, hey man, they're about to win this. He gives them a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl. And then the second half of the season happened. And again, I'm not saying Russell Wilson's terrible. I'm not saying that he's god awful now and everything that he's done just throw it out the window. He's a horrible quarterback. I'm not saying that. Russell Wilson still is one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but I have to give credit where credit is due. And I have to put blame where blame is due. Russell Wilson looked horrible on Saturday, and I think because of that, the offense could not get into any rhythm. Hell, you saw the horrible pick six that he threw. He was trying to throw the screen pass to DK, and the Rams read it perfectly, and it was just a pick six. Like I think the first half he didn't have a third down or like the first 5 possessions. Like, he just looked bad, man. And again, shouts out to the Rams for winning, but a lot of this is on Russell Wilson. A lot of it is. And of course, I think that they'll be able to bounce back next season, but a lot of it was on Russell Wilson. And I can't take nothing away from that. So, hey, yeah. Moving forward, the game that the last 2 games that we'll talk about were kind of predictable. And that was the one game we'll talk about now is the Saints. The Saints beat the Bears 21-9. Now, that's the fewest points allowed and the Saints allowed the fewest playoff points in team history with 9. Now, a lot of it here's the thing. The Bears is an incredible defense. And the Saints are averaging, like 30 points a game, and to only score 21, that shows just how good the Bears defense was and has been this entire year. Even though they come in 8-8 and they had a 6-game losing streak in the middle of the season, that's a lot of it is to do with the offense instead of the defense. Because again, you have Hicks, you have Khalil Mack, they have a top defense in the league, which held a high-powered Saints to 21 points. But, I mean, I don't like bashing this on somebody, but when you see, when you have a quarterback like Mitchell Trubisky and you have the players and the talent around him, and you're only able to muster up, I think, 1 third down the entire game, like, a lot of that goes on Mitch Trubisky, and a lot of it goes on Coach Matt Nagy. Like, when you can't scheme up getting the best out of your quarterback, and when the best, I understand that. Okay, I understand that we were looking at what he threw. It was like 3 games in a row. They scored over 30 points. He looked great, but that was the end of the season. And now that wasn't against playoff teams. Now that you're playing a playoff team, which was the Saints, it's just like, ugh, you know what I'm saying? Like, you run into a different beast. And again, I understand, you look at the Saints and you say, well, this is a top defense. This is one of the top defenses in the league. But again, when you're going to play a top defense once in a while. You know what I mean? So, even playing against a top defense, you were drafted, number 1 or number 2? Let me say this. He was drafted over a lot of incredible quarterbacks, such as Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. And Lamar Jackson, now I think about it. Or was that the same draft? I don't know. But I know for sure Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. You're drafted over them. You're expected to get more than 1 first down in a playoff game. I don't care if it's the Saints. I don't care if it's the 79 Bears. You're expected to get more than 1 first down. So I think moving forward, I think they're going to move off of him. I know you have Nick Foles in the tuck, but and we've seen Nick Foles. I think they'll be in the need of a quarterback. And I honestly don't know if Matt Nagy will be staying either. So and I don't know, man. The Bears are one of those teams that they're, to me, a piece. They're a piece away, and I think that piece and a coach away. I think that piece is a quarterback. because you have Robinson, you have so many good offense. Yeah, you might want. I don't know if Montgomery can be well, no, he's had his moment. So I think that just a quarterback away, because you know how great that defense is, and I don't think, at least we've seen, that Mr. Trubisky isn't it. You know what I mean? So, and for the Saints, again, Michael Thomas came back. He caught a touchdown. He looked great. Alvin Kamara had a touchdown. He looked good. Drew Brees, he still looks like the old, as far as, old person Drew Brees, but he was still, accurate. The Saints look like the Saints. So, but like I said, the Saints beat the Bears 21-9. And the last wild card game we'll talk about was the Bills and the Colts. This game had a lot. Now, a lot of people are going to talk about this game. Had two headlines are true. Josh Allen led the Bills to the first playoff win since 1995, and the Colts gave away a lot of opportunities to win this game. Missing a field goal. I understand he's a rookie kicker, but missing a field goal and going for it, you're at it's 4th and 1. No, it's 3rd and 1 at the 1 yard line, and instead of running it up the middle, you run like sweeps and shit. It's there was a lot of, and then okay, I understand, and I saw this in the national championship too. They're trying. There's no way in heaven or hell it's 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 or whatever in your territory, in the defensive territory, and they're not going to run a play. Why are you still drawing, and why are you going off sides? It's like bonehead decisions like that really, especially when you have a quarterback in Phillip Rivers who is old, and he isn't the most talented. I mean, he's a veteran, but he plays like it. Like, you don't have the best quarterback. Now, their defense was incredible. They won almost every facet. They won every facet of the game outside of quarterback, and that's why it was so close. Josh Allen led them to the two. If it wasn't for Josh Allen, who, by the way, was their leading rusher anyways, I mean, as well, if it wasn't for Josh Allen, they wouldn't have won. So, again, you kind of expected it, and the Colts didn't help themselves. You know what I mean? But also, the better quarterback won the game. So, shouts out to the Bills for beating the Colts. So let's do my divisional round predictions. Let's first start with the AFC. So the AFC, you have the Ravens against the Bills. Now, I think two things I saw that kind of was concerning to me when we're talking about the Bills was their rushing. They don't have a rushing attack. Josh Allen is their best rusher. Devin Singletary is not really giving you what you need, and they don't really have a rushing attack. And the last thing you want to do is, I understand you have Stephon Diggs. I understand you have Josh Allen. I understand you have Cole Beasley. You have good pieces, but the last thing you want to do is be a one-dimensional team against the Ravens. Now, not to mention their defense struggled with Phillip Rivers, and I can imagine what's going to happen against the Ravens. Not to mention I understand that the Bills are hot, but the Ravens are hot right now. And when you are struggling defensively and you're going against the Ravens, and Jonathan Taylor had a great game, and you're going against the Bills defense who struggles against the run, and you're about to go against the Ravens who is the best running team we've seen in God knows how long. That doesn't that doesn't bode well for the Bills. Now, again, I do think that Josh Allen is good enough to win this game, but I don't see, especially from now again, it was one game and anything can change, but I have the Ravens beating the Bills. I think that because the Bills struggle running the ball, and I saw how the Colts defense dominated, kind of dominated the line of scrimmage and dictated how the Bills were going to play. And I can see that happening, like I said, with Calais Campbell, Wolf, and those huge defensive linemen. I think that the Bills are catching the Ravens at the worst time possible because they're firing all cylinders. Lamar Jackson has all the confidence in the world. J.K. Dobbins is running incredible. Gus Edwards is running incredible. Of course, you have Lamar. I just think that rushing attack, if you can't stop the rush when it comes to the Ravens, you have no chance. And I think I know the Bills struggle with that. Not to mention they don't really struggle with throwing the ball, but that's not the Raven, or they don't struggle with stopping the pass, but that's not a Ravens like strong suit. So if you can't stop the Ravens, the rushing attack, I don't think you have a chance. I don't think it's a blowout or anything. And of course the Bills, teams are attacking Marlon Humphreys when it comes to pass coverage. So I understand he's a good corner, but they're still attacking him. And I think that especially if you find a matchup with Stephon Diggs on Humphreys, that could be a long day. But I don't think that the Bills can consistently stop the Ravens run enough to beat them. So I have the Ravens winning that. And the Chiefs against the Browns. Now, I will say this, and I will be objective. The Chiefs have not looked the best down the stretch. While they have won, they have not looked the best. They haven't looked like the dominating Chiefs that we've seen throughout the years. However, and I guess you can say, and the Browns, especially their defense, have looked incredible. Myles Garrett's looked good, and Baker Mayfield has looked good as well, especially against the Steelers. However, like I said before, the Chiefs is a different animal than the Steelers, and I don't see the Browns were able to. They didn't need to use their corners and safety as much because Big Ben does not throw the ball downfield. That is the Browns' biggest weakness, is their corners and safeties is not good at all. That is going to definitely, they're going to be put to the test when you have Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill, throwing the ball to Travis Kelce, throwing the ball to Harmon, Watson. I think the Chiefs win. I don't think it's a blowout or anything, but I don't think that Baker Mayfield can keep up. I think they're going to have to score a lot, seeing as though I don't think that the secondary of the Browns is able to slow down or stop Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Now, again, I understand that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have not looked. They kind of stumbled into the playoffs. Yes, they've won, but they haven't looked good winning. But again, the secondary for Cleveland is not good. Their defensive line is great, but their secondary is not. And I think that you can have a field day with that, especially if you're Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So I have the Chiefs beating the Browns. Let's move over to the NFC, I'm sorry. You have Tampa Bay and Saints. I think that, we talk about it's Drew Brees against Tom Brady. Now we've seen the Saints have had the most success against Tampa Bay this year. They beat them twice, and they beat them quite soundly the second time. I think that I don't think that Tom Brady is able to. I don't know, man. It's tough because I see what Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay did to Washington, but again, that's a 7-9 team, and I also remember that the Saints have beat Tampa Bay twice and pretty handedly. So I can't see, especially getting Alvin Kamara back, getting Michael Thomas back, and the defense healthy as ever. I just don't see Tampa Bay winning. I understand, AB was a big get for them, but AB played last time they played. And Marcus Lattimore takes the the matchup against Mike Evans quite like personally. Like, so I think Saints beat Tampa. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think, and not to mention, a lot of people expect this being Drew Brees' last ride, and I think that's a little level of motivation for the entire team. So I got the Saints beating Tampa Bay, and the Packers and the Rams. It's hard for me to pick against the Packers, especially with Aaron Donald being being not 100% with the rib injury, and Cooper Kupp, your best defender and your best offensive wide receiver, not being, Cooper Kupp injured. Not to mention Jared Goff even though they beat the Seahawks, Jared Goff didn't look good, especially with that hand injury. You're catching the Packers. Devontae Adams is incredible. Valdez Scantling. You have Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, of course. You have Turbin, the tight end. It's just hard for me to pick against the Packers. So I have the Saints beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I have the Packers beating the Rams in the divisional round. Meaning, the AFC Championship, I have the Ravens against the Chiefs, and I have the Packers against the Saints. So moving forward, one of the big news is a big news that we saw this week or last week was Deshaun Watson is upset with the team for he's not upset because they hired a new GM. He's upset because the team came to him as saying, you'll have input, you'll have insight in who we hire. He gives them insight, and they don't even put it. It'd be different if you okay, I think you should hire homie right there. And then you say, all right, we'll look into it. We'll interview him. We'll see what it is. They didn't even do they said hey, I think you should hire homie. They were just like, oh, who? All right. They didn't even interview the people that they didn't even take into consideration anything that Deshaun Watson said. Now, I understand that basketball, or the NBA, basketball in general, is different from football. I understand that, when you're talking about basketball, the big names, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, because they can dictate winning more than a football player. I understand that they would have some say or more say in a GM hire or a head coach hire, because of course that is your franchise. Their franchise is Steph Curry. Your franchise is LeBron James. You want them to be happy, and you want them to be at their best. And while you don't have to exactly pick who they ultimately choose, it would be smarter to have their input in the coaching hire or the GM hire, seeing as though they can have a direct impact on winning and losing, and that's basketball. NFL is different, man. I understand that not the head coach. I understand that the quarterback is the most important position, but there's so many factors that go into winning that it's not just the quarterback. So because of that, not to mention, we understand how salaries go. We understand the life expectancy of a quarterback. Of a football player. Well, let me say this: the career expectancy of a football player. I understand that it's different. I understand that you don't want to bank your entire future on something that a player says in the NFL, seeing as though they can be out and gone the next day, or they can be traded or something, and now you're pretty much stuck. I understand that, and I think NFL players understand that. But don't come to me and tell me, look, Jay, we want your opinion. We want your advice. We're ultimately going to make the decision, but we want your help. And then I'll be like, all right, cool, bet. I think you should do this, and this. And then you don't even consider none of that. Why would you come to me in the first place? You know what I mean? So I understand why Deshaun Watson is upset. Now, I get, you hire Bill O'Brien, who's a Patriots guy. That worked horribly. And then you hire another Patriots guy for the GM. I understand where this, skepticism can be, especially when you've shown nothing but incompetence when it comes to hiring GMs and hiring head coaches. I've seen nothing but incompetence. So the fact that I'm like, all right, look, if you want me to stay here, you're going, and then you ask for my help. I don't understand why you wouldn't take it. You know what I'm saying? So I get why he is upset. Now, of course, rumors have gone that he can demand a trade, and one of the best packages he'll get probably will be from Miami. You got Tua and like 3 first-round picks. If I am, here's the thing. Deshaun Watson has statistically one of the best years out of all the quarterbacks. I think he had like the second best statistical year out of all the quarterbacks, even with them being 4-12. So we know you're getting a top 5 quarterback if you trade for him. And of course, I understand that there's still questions about Tua, but I don't care. There's not 3 first-round picks that the Dolphins will get, or Tua, that's better than Deshaun Watson. And imagine Deshaun Watson with a good team, man. It just sucks, man. It sucks. But I don't, again, I understand the frustration with Deshaun Watson, and if he demands a trade, I think that the team should give him, he's done everything that he could for the team, and I don't think that the team has done everything they could to help him win. So I think that you should allow him to go and try to win somewhere else. But hey, I understand the frustration his way. So moving forward, Doug Pederson gets fired as a Eagles head coach after 5 years and a Super Bowl win. Do I think Doug Pederson is a bad coach? No. But I think a death sentence for all coaches is losing the locker room. Now, of course, there's a lot of reasons that you can get fired, a lot of reasons you can be let go, part ways, whatever it is. But one of the biggest death sentences is losing the locker room. And I think, in fact, I'm almost sure Doug Pederson lost the locker room. I mean, you saw a lot of when he, first of all, he handled the Jalen Hurts, Carson Wentz situation horribly. Not being definitive or not being concrete on who's going to start, or even though Jalen Hurts started, he'd be like, we're gonna make a decision next week. No, bro, who was starting? And then of course the Eagles didn't help anyone by paying Carson Wentz all that money just for him to go down the drain. It's just Doug Pederson, again, I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think he lost the locker room. The locker room galvanized around Jalen Hurts, and then you bench him the last game that they could have won, and you benching him was a direct impact of you losing. I understand that you probably were trying to get a better draft pick or whatever, but again, the players aren't going to understand that, and the players want to win. They don't care about a draft pick. So I don't think that this is the end for Doug Pederson. I really don't. But I do think that it was right. It was a right move for the Eagles to fire Doug Pederson, seeing as though, again, you lost the locker room. And while I understand that it's not the best team, this ain't the same Super Bowl team. Like I said, you have injuries galore. You have contracts that are probably going to go. You have disgruntled people. You have a lot of people that's not going to be there next year. And a lot of people that are coming in. Like, I understand it's not the same Eagles team, but again, a report came out and said he was tired of being told what to do. So that also shows not only did he lose the locker room, he was butting heads with front office. That is a recipe for disaster. You know what I mean? So, again, Doug Pederson's out for the Eagles. Bada bing, bada boom. And before we go, I only have one NBA topic, and that is that COVID, the NBA, I think, was the prime example of how to handle COVID, with the bubble and how successfully the bubble was. But of course, COVID is still here, and the NBA decided to push forward no bubble in the regular season, and the COVID has hit the NBA. You know, you had 2 games that were postponed: the Mavericks and the Pelicans, and the Celtics and the Bulls. I know that I think 4 players, including Seth Curry, tested positive for COVID for the Mavs. I know that there was some contact tracing from the Celtics. COVID has hit the NBA, and of course, a lot of people don't talk about, when we talk about athletes, you always hear, when are they going to get back on the field, or when are they going to get back on the court? But a lot of people don't talk about, I hope they're okay as far as life. I mean, we've seen this virus take endless lives. So I hope that the players that do catch COVID or do have COVID, I hope that they're able to, come back, speedy recovery, and push through. You know what I mean? And I think that once you test positive for COVID, I think the last thing you should be thinking about is getting back to your respectable sport. I think the first thing you should be thinking about is being healthy. So again, I hope that the thing is, I'm talking about this so like casual, because I have all faith in the world that the NBA is going to handle it as well as anybody expects, seeing as though they did a great job with the bubble. Because again, we knew, especially when they said there wasn't going to be a bubble this year, we knew that COVID was going to hit players. And again, I just hope that these players, I don't care when they come back. I just hope that they're healthy. You know what I mean? I hope that they push through. Because, like I said, COVID hits everyone differently, and we've seen people lose their lives left and right. So that has been this week's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I appreciate you guys for listening. I appreciate you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you like. Please comment if you want. If you don't agree with something I said, if you have some input, comment, let me know. We can discuss it. Please like the video if you do, or like the episode wherever you listen to it. Leave a review if you're listening to it on a DSP. That will definitely help a lot. And yeah, man, just please subscribe. So I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And until next time, much love.